right, welcome to today's episode of Tomorrow's Leader, where we dive deep on all things leader related to leading yourself and leading other people. So I want to start today's episode by hitting on one thought from my prior episode, which was on authenticity. And I want to make it a point on that. We talked in that episode about just the importance of being an authentic individual, especially with leadership. It is absolutely critical. And a person came to mind who I'm a fan of, and that's Gary Vee. For those of you who are a fan, you know that he is probably one of the most authentic people ever. So if you watch his videos, you watch him on a podcast, you watch him doing a keynote presentation. I mean, it's like watching this guy, on a Sunday, 2:00, watching a football game. He's probably the same guy exactly as he is when he's standing on stage in front of 1,000 or 3,000 people. So there's that much naturalness and authenticity. Says whatever he wants, doesn't worry about what anybody thinks, and is truly as authentic as can be. But that also makes him really relatable. It makes him approachable, makes him down to earth, makes him believable, and it adds to his level of influence. So just came to mind after that last episode. That was a great example of somebody who's ultra authentic. So I wanted to, I got something texted to me by one of my good friends, Jim Catchmar, who's a fan of this podcast, which I appreciate your support, Jim. He sent me a text, and it was a really cool example of something that I covered in a prior podcast. So, and I'll read it to you here. Neat little story. A paper boy had a dog that followed him from the very beginning of his route, which was set up around a neighborhood in a virtual circle. Every day, the dog would follow him, bark at him, and while it was playful in a way, it was a bit of a nuisance. As he would drop the paper in the door to the second to last house, the dog would squeeze past him and go in. Apparently, that was where the dog actually lived. After several weeks of this occurring and nearly wrecking his bike on more than one occasion, a light bulb went off. He decided to reverse his route. Now, his second house was where the dog lived. He opened the door and in went Fido. Problem solved. So I asked Jim if I could use that in the podcast. Great example of tweaking your environment. So I covered that in one previous episode. I want to make sure I gave a shout out and read that. I thought it was kind of a really cool example of a kid changing his environment to get a better result or a better experience. And there's all kinds of situations where we can do that. I mean, I think about just how I run my day. There's certain places in my house that I sit when I want to be more creative or I want to work on content. I have certain chairs that I like to sit in that just for some reason I'm more comfortable. That's just me changing my environment to get a better result. I also know I do certain things when I want to do a podcast, I'm in a certain spot. When I'm making a phone call, I'm in a certain spot. I just move around a lot just because for me, that helps change my environment to get a better outcome. So cool little story, Jim. Thanks again for sharing that. And keep your ideas, everybody, keep your ideas, suggestions, topic suggestions, guest suggestions coming to me because I get some of our best guests from you, the listeners suggesting people, and I get some of our best topics from you as well. So I want to talk about a topic, and this is a topic that I get asked about a lot. I look at one of the biggest, most important things for somebody changing their performance on something, whether it's an organization as a whole, or it's an individual, or anybody, whether it's business or personal. There's one thing that happens that ultimately starts to change their performance in anything, and it's a moment of heightened self-awareness. So I don't care if it's you getting in better physical shape. There's something that happened, whether you stepped on a scale, you tried on a shirt that was too tight, somebody made a comment, whatever it was, there was some kind of level of heightened self-awareness that triggered you to do something, make a massive change, and ultimately get on a new journey and a new route and a new trajectory. The same is true for anything. A leader taking the next level jump, changing the direction of an organization. There has to be this level of heightened self-awareness. And I see the best performers, and you see it with athletes, you see it with leaders, The best of the best are people that just have a heightened level of self-awareness. And this is something that you can actually learn, and I'm going to teach you a real quick way to do it at the end, but quick couple of stories. One is, I remembered a period of time, and this was a big aha moment for me too. I remember there's a period of time, I was this weird, like in high school, I had this really weird OCD with just one like part of my life. I wasn't like an OCD kid, but for some reason, when it came to like my outfits and picking out outfits every single day, I was paranoid that somebody would notice if I wore the same outfit, like, 2 weeks apart. I had this fear that somebody was going to be like, dude, didn't you wear that shirt like 11 days ago? That's pretty disgusting. I don't know why, but that was my like major fear. People have all kinds of fears. That was mine. So what I did was I legitimately would write, I'd keep a notebook and I would write out every day what I wore. So I wouldn't recycle an outfit. Like I had whatever, I don't know, 3 weeks, 4 weeks of different outfits and combinations of outfits. So I would never recycle them. I knew precisely what day I was going to be allowed to wear that blue striped shirt again. I knew which day I could wear that certain belt. Like literally, it was that detailed. And I never then had that fear. I knew that, okay, well, nobody, because I tracked it, was going to discover that I wore something less than like 28 days apart. That was my cycle, whatever it was. Weird, like the stupid things you think about when you're a teenage kid. Like that for me was a big thing. And then, I look back now and I'm like, you know what? Nobody really gave a crap. Like really, I could have worn the same thing probably 3 days in a row and maybe one or two people would notice. I mean, honestly, I forget, when I was in an office wearing a tie every day, I'd forget what tie I wore. I think there were days where I wore the same tie twice in a row, and I've got, whatever, I have 30, 40 ties. I can't remember, let alone anybody else. The bottom line is most people lack awareness, let alone self-awareness. They lack awareness. There was a teacher that I knew that did a great, really cool thing. In the middle of one of his classes, a student came in and like just literally in the middle, and there was probably, 100 people in this class. It was a college class with big auditorium style seating. Kid came in, swung open the door and started yelling at the professor. Yeah. And it was about a grade. It's bullshit. Hands flying. I mean, and everybody in the class was like, we're just awestruck looking at this interaction. Like, what the? And this guy like, duh, and he goes up and he takes a chair and throws it like right at the guy, right towards the professor, and like just starts like took something off the front desk, threw it off, and flips out, yelling. And this interaction goes on for like 60 seconds. It wasn't that long or whatever, 90 seconds, and the guy finally leaves. And the professor's like, oh my gosh, what? And everybody's like, still like shocked. Like, what the heck just happened? We thought the guy was going to take a swing at the professor. And so the professor's like, that's ridiculous. I'm reporting him. What can you guys describe him? What did he look like? And he started going on the board and taking it. And people were like, I don't know. He was 6 feet, about 6 feet, 6'1". And other people were like, no, he wasn't. He was like 5'7". He was like 5'8". And they're like, what? No, he was like 6 feet. And it's like, well, he had brown hair. No, he didn't. He had brown hair. He had blonde hair. And then somebody else was like, no, he didn't. He had dark hair. It was like black. And they're like, all right, whatever. And they're like, he had a beard, though. Definitely had a beard. No, he didn't. He was clean shaven. Bottom line is, and then it came to his outfit, what he was wearing. Everybody was all over the board. It turned out this was a setup. The teacher had asked a student. A student came back in, and everybody was like, oh, wow. Okay, you are 6 feet and you're blonde and you don't have a beard and you're wearing a blue shirt, not a white shirt. And it was like all the stuff that was written down on the board was basically totally wrong. But it was really cool. It was funny because, and you see this when people are in a crisis moment, like you see this with police reports and stuff like that. When emotions are high, people's awareness goes down, like not up, it goes down. People become like shell shocked. They don't even know it. So that goes not only for us observing other people and being aware of other people, but ourselves. In times of stress, we actually become less self-aware. And when we need to be more self-aware, we're actually less self-aware. So we've got to combat that. And that's the most important thing to changing the direction of your life, of your business, of a relationship, whatever it is, or your finances, anything. You've got to be aware, ultra aware of what current state is and ultimately what's happening. Here's a really easy exercise. I used to think about, and we've all been in this moment where we've been thinking about something like totally way off, like, I'm thinking about, a red boat. And I'm like, how did I get to thinking about a red boat? And then I'm like, oh, wait, I was thinking about that cruise that I was on. How did I get to that? Oh, yeah, I was thinking about that trip to Mexico that I went to. How did I get to that, though? Oh, I was thinking about the Mexican food I had last week. How did I get to that, though? I was thinking about what I want for dinner tonight. So I went from dinner tonight to thinking about a red boat, in the water. Sometimes we just lose track of how our thoughts get to a certain place. So the first step is become aware of what your thoughts are. So if you're in some kind of mental funk or some kind of state, and I actually do this exercise, I'll just think about, okay, if maybe I'm having some self-doubt about something, maybe I got a big presentation I'm doing or whatever, I've got a big meeting coming up, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm just not in that A-game mode. I'll write out what I'm actually saying to myself, like legit, because we're all saying something to ourselves, something's filling our brain, and unfortunately, most of it is going to be negative self-talk. So I'll just write down the sentences, the words that I'm putting in my mind. You're going to screw this up, John. This audience is tough. Or what if they ask you this, whatever. And all of a sudden, now I have it on paper. This is my awareness of at least what I'm saying to myself that's putting me in this. Of course, I'm not going to be confident when I'm filling my mind with this shit. That's not going to lead to great performance. So I can now look at this and say, okay, well, I'm not going to be able to get in that great state unless I change what's filling my head. I've got to reframe my thinking here and change my self-talk, which is a whole different set of skills and things that I can do. But at least now I'm aware that, okay, this is what the problem is. We'll talk about changing self-talk. I've talked about it in other episodes. We'll hit on another one. But just a quick, I wanted to share a couple quick stories about the importance of building your awareness. This is a skill. Just start with understanding what's the stuff that's going on here. What are you saying to yourself? Write it out. Just like that teacher. People became aware of their lack of awareness through that exercise. They're like, wow, we're really not paying attention, huh? So you can learn, you could teach yourself to increase your awareness of what's around you as well as what's going on with you. So hope this was helpful. Keep the ideas, suggestions coming. Keep these little anecdotes, stories coming. Keep in mind, on September 22nd, we've got a live leadership mastermind. I've got a guest, Peter Velarde, that's going to join. I've got a ton of other people that are going to be part of this. It's a live interactive session. We're going to have at 5 p.m. You will not want to miss this. I guarantee you're going to get some great takeaways from that. All you need to do is direct message me and I'll give you the login information. So next Tuesday, I look forward to seeing you. Keep liking, sharing, subscribing, commenting, reviewing, all that kind of stuff. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.